Alright, we are recording. So in the last video, showed you how I do the cutting out of sections from a video or multiple videos in order to then test the video processing. That is one of the first things I do. The actual first thing I do, though, is run a script in order to determine what the audio levels are of the media files I'm working with. I can drag and drop one file onto it, or I can drag and drop a lot onto it. Okay? It works with all of them. It is a bit complicated though. Fortunately, it is in a it just works kind of state, so I've been able to forget a little bit about it, but hopefully I'm gonna remember it. I've already been remembering some because this is my second take. Let's hope it goes well. So this is it. And this is the generic script that gets run. This is what it produces. This is what I then do with this script. This is just the reference one. With this information, this is what I then edit to build out what's going on. And then this is the example for FreeRun Season 1. Okay, so this is a volume to text script, which is why I had that set for the title. And as you notice, I also have start here. So I'm pretty sure I didn't mention, maybe I didn't. The batch parameters, you can move through them in a batch file, and that is done with this command, shift. It just shifts over. So what happens here is, just ignore what this stuff specifically is. It's what is being run, okay? So it goes down, it goes through all that, it hits shift here. It's like, okay, now %1, that value is changed to whatever %2 is. If that turns out to be empty, then go to end, which will just exit. If there is something there, meaning that there's a second file, it goes to start, which is back up here. So it then changes the title to be whatever the name of that second file is. So that's why it's set up this way. Technically, yes, this is a for loop in essence, but not built into a for loop because for loops in batch can be kind of weird. Trust me, we've got one down here. And how that is actually working is rather odd. Okay, but let's get back into this. So, title is set. Now, if not exist, volume detect, .txt, echo dot into volume detect.txt. So what is that doing? That is saying, hey, if the volume detect file doesn't exist, make it and just write a blank line into the first thing. That's what the echo dot is going to do, a blank line at the top. Okay, so it makes the file and first line is blank. It then writes in the name and extension of the file. Technically, I only need the name because I basically always only work with MKVs, but having the extension is still useful because maybe there will be an MP4 in there, maybe I'm working with FLAC, whatever. It's just going to write that into the file. Now, notice this is different. We have 1 into and 2 down here. 1 is make the file. Okay, 2 is amend the file. So we're going to put that into the file. We're not necessarily making a new file, we're just putting one in. Okay, putting more information in. All right, now we get to this. Call count audio with %1, so the file that has been, the first file that has been dropped onto, or at least one of them with shift, but take that file, pass it to count audio, and then also count here. Okay, well, what does count do? Well, we kind of see in the next one what's going on here. Is that's a variable? Is I use it as a variable name? Okay. So what this function does, and I use others like this in other places, so it is important to understand. There is a way to call a function and then tell it, here's the variable I want you to store your output into. Okay, here's the variable name I want you to do that. That's what I'm doing here. Batch scripts are underappreciated, I do believe. Don't get me wrong. There are definitely better programming languages, better scripting languages than Windows Batch. But there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with them, okay? There really is. And I like working with it because, over something like, say, Python, because Python has its own idiosyncrasies. Some of them I really dislike. Some of them in Batch are still frustrating as well. But at least with this, I know I'm not installing Python. I don't have to worry about Python. This is just literally commands being run in the command prompt. Which also means, if I need to test something, I can just pull up the command prompt and type it in and see if that works or not. And if it doesn't work, I can try to troubleshoot. from that. Anyway, now let's look at the count audio down here. Okay, so it takes two parameters, the input file and the variable name. Now, unlike before, and also what we see right here and right here, I am not assigning these two variable names, two readable variable names. I could, it's just not really necessary, especially since we're literally just running two lines. One is a for loop. And as I said, batch for loops are kind of wonky. So what this is doing is, I'm sorry, it really is weird. Because what this is doing is it's running an ffprop. ffmpeg also comes with ffprop, which gives data on the file. ffmpeg is for encoding, and then there's also ffplay, which just plays the file. Tells it only write stuff at the error level or more important. I don't remember what that is. Default, no print. I mean, there's a lot in here that I really just, it kind of is how it works. And it's also a little awkward because that is to escape. Because if that equals was there otherwise, the for loop wouldn't run correctly. It's, yeah, as I said, there's idiosyncrasies here. It does get annoying. It makes it kind of messy. ffprop was already kind of weird to work with, so it is what it is. But anyway, yeah, no print wrapper, so it's just don't show me all the information. No key, I don't remember what that necessarily achieves, but show entries. Okay, so that's, now I'm telling you ffprop what the information is that I want. I want this stream codec type select streams audio of this input. Okay. What does that actually mean? Okay, so what this is doing in sum, and then we've got this, which is that is a pipe. So it's telling it, hey, pipe it into this command, find, which is just built-in command. I don't remember what the CV is, but what this is doing is it should return literally just 0, 1, 2, 3, the stream ID numbers for every audio stream in the file. This then searches just how many names are there, well, how many lines are there, and then it sets that value, this percent %i, which is how you have to identify tokens for loops in batch files. Don't ask me why it's 2%, whereas in other places we use just single. It does have idiosyncrasies. I don't understand all of them, but it's still, there's some neat stuff you can do with batch files. It will take the result of this and write it to out. Okay. Then here I just have commented out for it to write what that number was, and then it sets that. The /a just means treat it as a number. It's not just a character or digit. It is a number. Of set out. So I'm calling the out variable there. Set it to %tilde2, which was the variable name. So count. Okay, so take the value of count, assign it, set it. Sorry. Take the value of out, set it, and set count to that value. Okay? And the quotes are necessary here so that it will actually take this name appropriately and put in there. And then it exits, it's done. So we can move on. All right. Now we get to this. So literally all count audio does is say how many audio streams are there in a file. Now we get this next line, which is set, and then /a again, though now I'm using lowercase for some reason. That doesn't make a difference here. Same with the /b's. That can be upper or lowercase, doesn't matter. Streams, I now want set to count -1. Why am I doing that? Well, let's say that the file has 2 audio streams in it. It will return the answer 2. What are the IDs of these audio streams? 0 and 1. So subtract 1 from 2 to get 1. That's all. So it's just correcting the offset. Well, it's applying the offset, I should say. So now, a for loop again. This time it is going through, well, it's I'm trying to remember how this sequence works here. Start at 0, a step of 1, until you reach the count of streams. And then this is literally just doing that, but to echo whatever the stream ID was, because it's helpful for troubleshooting. Do that, and then you do these commands. So it calls volume detect file. I will get to that. Com build. I will get to that, and then write 2 blank lines afterwards. Yeah, and also as you can see, this is the %s, so that's the stream ID is just being used there. It comes from here. It's literally just what is in the sequence, and that's the file. All right, so let's look at volume detect. Okay, so first thing it does is it sets the channel. Technically, that should be stream, I think. Hang on. Yes. I don't feel like, well, you know what? No, I will change. Okay. It should actually be that. Yeah, and I guess I should also save that then. So, the stream ID, save it to the stream variable name because it's going to be easier. If it is blank, set the stream to 0. So that is just for those instances where, for whatever reason, turns as nothing. And then if the stream number is greater than or equal to the count, so that variable, exit. So it's like, okay, once we hit that, move on. You've done all of the audio streams. It then is to say it is stream A : whatever the stream ID is. So 0, 1, 2, and so on. And this line writes that to the command prompt, so I can see what stream is working on. This line writes it into the file. So I'm just identifying what the stream is. And then here, this I'm using FFmpeg for its function, which is volume detect, as opposed to using ffprobe. I am actually not sure if ffprobe will return an answer here. I probably experimented with it, but I wrote this a long time ago. But it's also why I probably, what I'm going to blame for why I use the variable name chan for channel instead of stream. Because channel is, I use that elsewhere. Anyway. So I'm telling FFmpeg hide banner, which is just, it tries to give you some information like what the version of FFmpeg is. Don't need that. Hide that. Take the input file, ignore the video, ignore the subtitles, map is to say, hey, I want to use this specific stream. So it's the stream of the first file, the first input, the audio stream. First input, audio stream number, whatever. The question mark here is to let it know if it exists. Okay, FFmpeg, if you try to point it to a stream that doesn't exist, it complains. With that question mark there, it's like, oh, okay, I will try this. If it fails, just move on. Because there is nothing there. Run the audio filter volume detect. And then this is saying you're not writing any output. Okay, just not writing it to a file. I'm trying to remember what all this does. Part of it is it is definitely for piping purposes, because the output of this is piped into this find string command, which searches for a line that contains mean volume and another line that contains max volume. The results of those two are then written into the text file, okay? And that's all the volume detect file does. So, summing it up, it should be accurate and probably makes more sense. It just gives a summary than to actually try to go through and explain it all, especially when it's been a while since I wrote this. Sorry. I go, here's a file. Go through every single audio stream in it and just tell me what's the mean volume and what's the maximum volume. And just put that in a file. That's all that does. It has to be a little messy because it's a little involved. All right. So it does that. And then we've got the com build, which is actually kind of weird. So this has got to be out of date. Hang on, let me look. This has got to be more out of date than I thought. Okay, yeah. So normally this is off. This version of the script is just out of date, so it should be like that. But I'll still explain what it is. So com build, the idea there was for it to build up the command for me to change whatever the volume is. I've decided not to do that because it's just a lot cleaner to not have that command in there. Because I need to write this into another file anyway to use any of that information. So it's like, all right, just give me the information to write in. Don't give me the command. So now I have to copy and paste whole lines to put in there. It's just easier. So what it does is it first builds this thing up, which is saying, hey, I want to do an audio filter. Apply an audio filter onto this stream ID. Volume of initially 0 dB. I would have to have it take the max volume here and put that in there. That's not happening. Python would be able to do that much more easily. Not so much batch files, but as I explained, I'm preferring to work with batch files in this situation. Next, it is to... Okay, the command to use this command, which is not in this file, it's in others. Actually, it is also in this one. So this is to return the number of audio channels that there are. I'll explain why that's important later. Rate, so the bit rate for Opus at a given number of channels. Opus is my preferred audio codec for this stuff. Well, for the final output. I actually prefer FLAC when doing... I'll get to it. And then this is just the command to actually, like, do it all in the final video processing. But, as I already said, not doing that anymore because it makes this thing a lot uglier. I mean, this is fairly clean, but you just imagine... Oh, wait, no. Hang on, I need all four. This at every single one. It's so messy, it's not actually showing me anything useful, so we're not going to do that. All right. But this is the output that I got when I dragged and dropped all of Season 1 of Freewind. Yeah, it is kind of a long file, but it's still a lot cleaner than if it had all that stuff in there. This is what I got by dragging and dropping it all on there, and just, all right, give me the values. So first episode, second episode, third episode. First audio stream, this is the 5.1 English. Second audio stream, this is the stereo Japanese. And as you can see, they are fairly different. The max volume, and this is the one I main look at. Mean volume is important, and that's why I do keep it here, but I really only work with max volume. I want to avoid clipping, that's it. Now I'm trying to remember if it was this video or the previous take, because this is my second attempt at recording this, where I explained about clipping. I'll get to it. So yeah, max volume is what I typically look at. And so yeah, here I'd want to... -4 is kind of significant. I would want to raise that up. The Japanese, though, no, that's fine. I'm perfectly good with where that is. And I do also want to note, for the mean volume, so the average, -28, -32. So they are off by about 4 decibels. So you could... For whatever reason, it seems that the English is just being... it's aimed at -4 dB for the max across this, whereas the Japanese tends not to be, although there's an exception right here. Okay, so we got all this information. What do we do with it? We use this script, which I'm pretty sure, yes, this is up to date. So what I do here is, well, I've got 2 different options. Vol call Opus and vol call FLAC. Okay, I prefer to work with FLAC. That's why I've got this down here. What is FLAC? What is Opus? They are both audio codecs. Opus is a lossy codec, but it's pretty good. Okay, it really is quite good. At a reasonably low bit rate, you can get very good quality audio. I get 96 kilobit to 128 kilobit. You're getting... You shouldn't notice many artifacts, many errors in that, whereas something like MP3, you'd be talking more like 256 to 320 bits kilobit. Sorry. You'd be aiming up there. So it's a lot smaller than MP3, a lot more efficient. So that's what I use for the outputs. But this is an intermediary step. So I want to use something else, a lossless codec, such as the free lossless audio codec, FLAC. I also will mention something else. Both FLAC and Opus are very fast to encode, at least for their versions in FFmpeg. If anyone's curious about using AAC, the Advanced Audio Codec, there are encoders there that can reach the efficiency of Opus, but that's not necessarily what is available in FFmpeg. And also, at one point, I actually ran into just moving from doing the audio in Opus instead of AAC. It sped up the whole thing, and I was encoding video at the time as well. So the AAC encoder was slower than the video encoder. So Opus, though, very fast. So is FLAC. So what all does this do? I'm going to focus on this line for now, because that's the main one. So it calls up a command that's down there. It is involved. And it looks into this folder, this directory, which right now, that %dp0, I never explained what the 0 parameter is. That's this file itself. So it will look into the folder that this file is in. Now I can also give it something else right here if I want to. So I can specify, but otherwise it will just run in this folder. Okay. It looks for whatever the file is, and then for however many tracks there are, however many streams, so these all will have two, one English, one Japanese. It will apply AMP1 to that first track, AMP2 to the second track, and so on. I am very satisfied with myself that I managed to figure out how to have it do that. We will take an arbitrary number there. And is also, for this first one, I don't want to change the Japanese audio. I just want to change the English. I can actually do 3 and just leave it at that. And it will just be like, oh, okay, I'm not going to touch the others. I can also do that, and it'll be like, oh, okay, I know to just copy the second stream. Okay? Now, why did I pick 3 there? Because, and this is where I'm sorry if I'm going to be repeating myself on what clipping is. Audio is basically always measured in reference to another value. Typically, to me, with what I'm doing, it's 0. Okay, so 0 dB is the maximum. You cannot go above that. If you do, that's called clipping, in that you're losing information, okay, because you can't go above 0. So that also makes sense here, why this is all -4, -4. Here, 0, that is like, it is actually peaking out at 0, which is ideal, in my opinion. You want it to hit there. Sometimes you will see like a -0. Don't know if that'll be the case here, which I assume is just from rounding. But in any case, to me, hitting 0, that's perfect, because that means the audio is taken care of in the file. You just have to hit that button. It's just the button you have to be concerned with. Okay. I prefer, I want it to be within 2 dB of 0, so -2 to 0. And what I do is, so this is 4. I don't want to actually amp it by 4. I don't want to do that. I will amp it by 3. The reason why I don't want to amp it by 4 is there might be some error there. Okay, there might be some rounding, there might be some error where if I apply 4, you know what, maybe it's actually 3.9. And it's just rounding up. I have seen it actually change values between it being in the original audio versus being in FLAC. There's no change to the audio. It's a lossless audio codec. It'll still change its value. So I don't try to bring it up to 0. I try to bring it within 2 dB. So this, I would only amplify by 3, and I always go by an integer amount. I don't need to, but I can. This would also be 3, because 3.5 is like, okay, 0.5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. It'll be like that. That I use. If it is less, it's 2.6, so I'd do 2. Do we have any? This -1 I wouldn't touch. This -2 I would. I'd amp by 1. 3.9 would be 3. 2.5. Come on, do we have here we go. 4.1. So that would be 3, because I'm rounding down now instead of rounding up. All right. And that 0.8 I wouldn't touch. 0.8 is fine where it is. Okay. Just trying to think if there's anything else. What do I need so I can... Okay, let me also take care of this stuff. So this is just to really simplify some stuff. Because, sometimes I have to work on a series, like Freerun. In fact, here, we can just look at this. So what this is doing is it is pointing towards... I had been storing it in that future because I wasn't ready to start processing it when I built this script. I was working on other things. I should have looked and cleaned that out first. I didn't. Sorry. But it's telling it, hey, that's where the folder is. It's like, okay, so now I don't need to constantly be writing that in everywhere. It's just there. And now we get, well, there can be multiple seasons. Right now I only have season 1. I mentioned Babylon 5, that's 5 seasons. So I got, go to season 1. That's how you tell to skip around in a, well, I've already shown that with the, with shift here. The shift here and go to. Okay. So what it does, it gets the directory of the season, indicated by that capital S there, which is the dir variable / season 1. And then series with the capital S at the end to indicate that, hey, this is just storing the basically title of the series and the season. So that's stored in here. So now I just need to tell it episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, all the way down. So it's just a lot easier, a lot cleaner, and a lot smaller. And then you can see, it's like this is how it's actually to amplify. In the first one, 3 and 0, 3 and 0, 3 and 0, 3 and 3, 3 and 0, and so on, right? Okay, so yeah, that's what this stuff is for. But if you're just, let's say, extras on a movie, it would just be multiple of these, with each one, like deleted scene, theatrical trailer 1, theatrical trailer 2. You get the idea. Oh, and in case you're wondering how I duplicated Control D. All right. Some of this stuff doesn't need to be here. This one, that doesn't need to be here. That's a remnant from something else. We will be seeing that, not just now. We're going to skip looking at this, the vol call opus and the loop opus, which is actually still within this, because that is there for if I'm trying to actually get the output audio. I'm not doing that here. I am doing just adjustments. So that's an intermediary, an intermediate file. So I want it to be lossless, so I know I'm not introducing generational loss. Okay, but it still might be, oh, I just need to get that audio for whatever reason. That's when I would use that. Okay, so that's where we actually are interested in starting. Yeah, there's a lot down here, and some of it could also be like that proc call where it actually isn't needed. I need to pause though because I need to get a drink of water. I do love the OBS pause feature. I'm so glad that they finally added that. Anyway, so this takes the folder, takes the film, so I'm reusing that naming, and asks for the amp. Although I'm trying to remember exactly how this works, because it's also right there. I'm then setting it to nothing. So I'm losing that? Wait. No, I'm not. I can't be. I'm trying to remember how I do. Oh, okay. No. I see. Okay. Huh. So I need to set amp to be blank initially. I don't remember exact. The logic here gets weird, okay? I'm sorry. It just does. And I'm going to have to try to remember some of it. Some of it I do remember exactly why, though. I don't remember why I have to set that to be blank. I understand. If you try calling a variable that has not been used before, so if you did echo amp before it's set a value, it just returns nothing. Which is fine. That's good. That is a good answer for batch files to do. Other programming languages, scripting languages, you need to create the variable and then give it a value. Batch is not like that. Pro and con. This, however, it needs to do that because that makes sure it's not just calling the amp from the previous file. So it's not just pulling the amplification information from the previous one. Okay, so that's why that would need to be there. I don't remember exactly why later on, but I do know that's logic going on here. Alright, then we get a sum, which is being told that it is an arithmetic value. So this is not just 0 as in the character 0, it is the number 0. And SID, stream ID. These I also do remember why this is the case. And then it does audio count. So it needs to know again how many total audio tracks are there. Not just how many are going to have an amplification applied, how many in total. And then we get to this, which, so this is its own loop within this larger function. And what it is looking for first is it sets the a sum, amplification sum, to be itself. That's what plus equals, set plus equals, tells it, take the value and set it equal to that value plus whatever I'm telling you. And it is taking, now we have this, the amplification. Now we're actually using it. That's where the batch parameter is being used. Why? Because it is, I don't know if there's any examples here. Yeah, let's look at this one. So it's 1, 0. Let's say that was 0, 0. It's running through and it's seeing the sum. It's like, oh, the sum is 0. I can either just copy the file completely, no changes, or I can skip it. That is controlled by this up here. You might be thinking, why would you want to make a copy of the file? It can be helpful because I do strongly recommend, if you were to do this, when you're done with processing the audio, it puts it into a new folder. I'm not sure if it's named up here. It might just be named down here. Take the outputs and run it through Volume Detect again to make sure things are correct. Because sometimes, it's like you make a mistake, you accidentally applied the wrong amplification somewhere, and it's like, oh, now I'm getting things at 0 that shouldn't be at 0, and got something at -6 still. I need to fix that. And it can be helpful if you still have the full list here versus just the ones you're changing. But having just the ones you're changing, that takes less time and takes less storage. Which when you're working with, say, 150, 200 gig seasons at a time, yeah, skipping can be very useful. But there are other times where it's like, no, it's actually fine to have that copy made, so then you know complete list is there. All right, now we've got call audio channel, odd channel. And this is kind of similar to what we saw before for getting the number of streams. But in this case, what it's actually doing is it's returning the number of channels. So for a 5.1 channel, 5.1 stream, it returns 6. Center, left, right, rear, left, and right. That's 5, and then subwoofer, 0.1. 7.1 is 8. Stereo is 2. And so on. By the way, something I do want to mention concerning Opus, it supports mono, it supports stereo, it supports 5.1, it supports 7.1. It doesn't like some of the more exotic things, though, like 3.0, 3.1, 4.1, 6.1. Yes, I've encountered 4.1. I also have 4.0. I've encountered some of these, and it doesn't really like some of them. And by the way, the 4.0 is not necessarily a front, left and right, rear, left and right. No, it could be center, left, right, and a center, rear. Opus doesn't really like some of those. I think FLAC is fine with it, but yeah, Opus can be particular, which requires then you either have to select the specific stream and ignore others, or do some other work, which that's for a different video for the actual script that does that stuff. The heck? Okay. Oh, okay. I don't know if that audio came through of my phone chiming, but it was basically one of those just apps on there that's like, oh, hey, don't you want to see the new features? It's like, no, I don't. I really don't. Anyway. So I do need to take into consideration... Yes, I do need to take into consideration the number of channels. Why? Because FFmpeg is kind of stupid, okay? I wish this were not the case, but it is. We have a 5.1 in a stereo in all these files. if I don't explicitly tell FFmpeg, hey, the first stream, that should be 5.1, and the second stream should be stereo. If I don't specifically tell it that, it's just going to be like, oh, well, I'm actually not sure if it'll be, oh, it's 5.1, I should use 5.1 for everything, or, oh, it's stereo, I should use stereo for everything. So I'm either going to mix up 5.1 stereo unnecessarily, or I'm going to downmix 5.1, which is undesirable. So you need to tell it specifically, no, this is the number of channels. It'll typically know the channel layout. You don't need to worry about that. Or it'll figure it out. But you need to tell it, no, this is the number of channels. So that's why this is being run. And it does also check, is it amplifying by 0? If it is, then it will just take the number of streams and, take the number of channels in the stream. You do need to tell it which streams, so that's why we still have the SID here. The number of channels, and then it just stream copies it, so it makes no change. And by the way, now we see, amp, so it builds out the amp command. So that's what this is for. But I keep using the tilde-3, which actually makes some sense, because it has to iterate through. So might as well stay with batch parameter that can iterate through. So it will stream copy if there's no amplification. If there is amplification, then it's building up that amp command, filter the audio of this stream number using the volume filter, and which will just apply that number of dB, so 3 dB, and that stream should have audio channel, the audio stream of this ID number should have this number of audio channels. So it's audio -HC, audio channels, audio stream. You do need to tell it it's an audio stream, as though you could have audio channels to video. The stream ID, number of channels. And then here we have the codec so the audio codec for this stream being FLAC. Because down here, it would be copy. So it's not changing anything. If it were Opus, so we'll show this up here. It's not just, hey, tell it to use libopus, but now you also need to tell what the bitrate is. And for that, it has to call this function down here. I'll get to that. It's building up the audio, the sequence of commands, sequence of filters for FFmpeg to run on every single audio stream. On the one hand, this is very complicated. It took me a while to work this all out. Okay, that's on the one hand. On the other hand, did you know batch files are actually capable of all this stuff? They are. Okay, so it goes through, and it then moves to the next ID, stream ID, shifts so we get a new amplification number, and then it checks if the stream ID is the count of streams. If it is, then go here and continue on. If it is blank, then it just tells it to copy that stream in. So this is for that scenario of, oh, that's 0, I'm going to just skip it. Well, I don't want to lose that audio track. I do want to keep that in there. I don't want to lose that audio stream, I should say. So this will be like, oh, okay. So it will, because this count, unlike over here, where, there it is, the offset is being applied, it's not being applied here. So this is hey, there's 3 audio tracks, I'm at stream 3. Well, remember, it's 0, 1, 2, so 3. Stream 3 is actually stream 4. So it's like, okay, if these are equal, if the count is equal to the ID number, I've gone too far, stop. If nothing was given, then just copy the stream. And it will do that. And it will actually then, because let's say that there were actually 3 audio tracks here. So it would be like that, but I'm only giving it 1 value. It'll go through this all again, and when it hits here, it will just put that in there again with the new ID numbers. Because this is the thing that it will actually catch, that, oh, you've run out of total number of streams. Okay, that's what catches it. All right. So at this point, it has built up, and then, go to loop flag, so it goes back up here. So this is what builds up the filter commands in order to get this all done. We then, once out of that, have this check, which is if skip is true. So that's this thing here, to skip the files when no amplification is to be applied. If that is true, then it checks if, and I'll explain why the quotes are there, it then checks if this a sum, the sum of the amplifications, is 0. If it's 0, skip. There's nothing to do, because none of the audio needs to be changed. But if it was set to skip and the sum of the amplifications is not 0, then it needs to process. It will continue on to this, which is just telling it to make 2 folders, one titled original volume, because I will take, sometimes, not always, I'll take the original file and just throw it in there. And then the volume folder is what will actually hold. That's I'm writing the new output with the amplified audio into that folder. And then, here we've got FFmpeg, hide the banner. I don't think that's being shown there. Input, if there's a video track, keep it. I'm telling you to map all the audio and to just copy the audio. This gets overwritten. And yes, I know. It's like, well, wait, you were just telling it and should be billing that. Yes, I know. I am being redundant here. But better redundant so it can't screw up versus not redundant and ends up screwing up. So we'll copy all the audio, but then it will also run this amplification command, which will tell it, no, use this audio encoder instead for these specific streams. So this still all works. And then it will also copy the subtitle tracks if they are there, and copy all the metadata. And by the way, so the map metadata, that's this 0 is just like this 0 here in the maps. Then if the file already exists, skip it. And that finishes that off. Oh yeah, why are the quotes here? I think I explained that in cut. In the previous one, I will repeat it here. Because this, right now, skip doesn't exist. So that variable would return blank, not like false or just anything else, but blank. And you can't really do blank equals this. It doesn't really like that. So the quotes there make sure it'll work. Okay, now I'm just... Yeah, I already explained about audio channels. So I need to explain this. Okay, this I do actually use... Oh, no, sorry. This is the count of the audio streams. This is the one that returns what the channel layout is. But oh, wait. No, okay. Count of the audio streams. The number of audio channels in the stream. The name for the audio channels. And then this is for naming... Yes, naming the audio tracks. I'll explain it quickly here. Technically, it's done in a different file. But in theory, I could actually tell it... hang on. I can actually do something like this. And tell it English, Japanese, and it will then just write those into, so that the first track is named English, the second track is named Japanese. I'm not doing that here, I'm doing it elsewhere, or I'm just not bothering with it. And then this is to figure out what the channel layout name is. And it's doing the same kind of thing here as what we've seen elsewhere, where it's asking FFprobe to do some work in a for loop. It is wonky, just it is. This is to make it uppercase, so in case it were to appear as that, I want it uppercase surround 7.1, surrounds 5.1, and also just if it returns just 7.1 or just 5.1, make it that. That gets... I'm just trying to think of the best way to explain it before getting into this. So there's a bug in Jellyfin. That's the server software that I use for playing. There's a bug at the moment. that is quite annoying. It seems that there is no real solution for it, though. At least not for my situation. If I have an AV1 video with 7.1 audio, but my system only supports 5.1, the server would like to downmix for me instead of having the Roku do it or whatever do the downmixing from 7.1 to 5.1. It wants to do it itself. It's like, okay, fine. But it will not do that with AV1 without re-encoding AV1. And it'll do that to 264. So great, now you're changing the quality of the video. I don't want that. I don't want the server having to do the processing of that. I don't want the temporary storage being used for that. I want direct play. All right. I tell it to make it, so I will, in my scripts, have it just downmix a 7.1 to a 5.1. I keep the 7.1, which is another bug concerning that, where it'll still go and try to play that, even though I'm telling it 5.1. That's separate. But still, I will do that downmixing, which is why it does actually matter, because like with this, I can actually, if this is blank, that's blank, it'll actually just write in surround 5. It'll read that the channel layout, surround 5.1, write that in, and then read the channel layout of stereo and write that in. So it's actually pretty nice. I know, there's a lot going on here. I'm sorry. There just is. Technically, though, I can remove these from this script. They don't need to be in here. They're in another script. The one that actually runs through and does all the video processing. At that point, that's when I do the metadata. But let's get back to this rate opus thing. Okay, so by and large, I trust the Opus encoder. I can be like, here's the audio, please do your thing. It's like, okay, I'll do that thing. But Opus is lossy, and it can be set for different quality levels, more or less. Not exactly quality levels, but you can tell it, hey, target 96 kilobits per second, target 1 in 28 kilobits per second, so you can tell it that. Well, the thing is, you kind of want to tell it, because maybe you don't always want to trust it to make the decision correctly itself, or you just want to override it. That's what this is for. So you need to tell it the variable name, so what you want to store this information to. The track number, as I recall. No, it's not the track. Hang on. I have the example up here. I should just look at that. Yeah, okay. No, this is the number of tracks. So this is what audio channel replies with. So 5.1, it would be 6 there. And then pair and mono. So Opus, okay. Stereo audio, front left, front right, they tend to be similar because they're near each other. It's literally what you'd hear out of both ears. Well, in both ears. They tend to be pretty similar. So what encoders will do, including Opus, is take advantage of that. So it's like, it might only encode actually probably the left channel. It might only encode that. And then the right channel is just, okay, what are the differences here? Take that, apply the differences. It's not necessarily that simple, but that is a way to visualize it, okay? So when it can find pairs, it will do so and encode them with that pairing. Whereas a mono track, well, as it even says here, the mono track, there's only the one reference, so it can't reference anything else. Okay, so as it says here, though, a mono track will be at 64 kilobit. Well, each mono track gets 64 kilobit by default. Each stereo track gets 96 for the pair. So it is 50%, well, no, it would be 3/4 the size of just encoding two mono tracks. Okay? So in here, it then... I'm just trying... I don't remember how all this is necessarily going, but it is definitely, it will... So this is to handle some situation... I'm sorry, it's been a while since I wrote this one especially. So it tries to... This handles the condition of in case the number of channels was not provided. Oh, yeah. So that's... Sometimes I work with... Chans is helpful when I'm working with multiple audio streams that can have varying tracks. Chan is typically when there's only the one audio stream. So it's like that might be written somewhere else in the file. Hey, just pull that and go with it. Because it will be the answer to the question because the question doesn't change. If the number of channels is greater than 2, it will tell Opus, hey, mapping family 1. That means it's surround sound, okay? Look for pairs like that. Set pair to be whatever the value is there. If it's either set to 0 or is blank, just use the default of 96. Okay? And then for mono, same kind of thing, but set it to 64. And then coming to here, although, well, yeah, that does matter, but I also ignore it in a way. If the number of channels is less than or equal to 8, 8 is 7.1, then the bitrate, the output bitrate, should end up being 3 times the pairs, because there's front, mid, or center, and then rear. So that's 3 different pairs plus the plus center plus subwoofer. So that's 3 pairs, 2 mono tracks, center and subwoofer. If it's less than or equal to 6, 5.1, do this, where it's now 2 pairs and 2 monos. Less than or equal to 2, then this is just do whatever the pair is. So technically, any time I'm working with mono, I'm encoding it at 96 kilobit instead of 64. Oh no, it's 50% more. It's not that big a deal. But the reason why I have this, well, more so up here, is maybe I want to be like, hey, you know what? It's Fantasia or something like that. Where it's like, I want even higher quality audio. So I can turn that up. Or I could even say lower quality. I don't know why I would, but I can do that. This allows me to override whatever it is. But it does not want to go above, Opus doesn't do above 512 kilobit per second. So it checks if it is at 512 or above, and then it just sets it to 512. I have a sneeze I'm trying to hold back. And I think, let me quickly check. 3 times 96 plus 2 times 64 is 416. But let's say, like a Fantasia, which is actually a 7.1. It is 7.1. Yeah, let's say I wanted to make it 128 kilobit for the pairs and 96 kilobit for the mono tracks. That would be 576. Opus would throw an error at that. So in that case, it's just, nope. It's just add to your maximum, which is 512. It then attaches on the K to tell kilobits. And the mapping family up here then attaches that. Trying to remember what some of this is. If the pair is 0, set variable to f. Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is to write the information to the variable that was given it, which is %tilde1. So we'll write, well, it's already written here. It's just, I'm actually not sure why this is here. Oh, no. Sorry. I get it now. Stop being stupid. So this is to say if we're not basically touching anything, if we're not, it can use its defaults of the 96 and 64. If that's the case, then all you got to do is just say, hey, Opus, do the mapping family thing. Okay? Though technically that doesn't quite seem right, but it is. It works. I know it works. So anyway. I know. It is the only way I'm going to remember how some of these work is by going through and talking about them. So you're just along for the ride. I'm sorry. It is, though, as I said, it's complex, okay? No matter what we're doing, it's complex. And just to be clear on it, we want to do, come on, there we go. Season 2. Like that. That technically would be it. If all the volumes were the same. That'd be it. That's why the reason why I have this stuff set up this way. So now I don't need to go and edit that. And we're assuming that also 28 episodes. But yeah, so once that we're done, run it, goes through the files, applies the amplification or not. Might just skip. And then once we have that done, it's like, okay, cool. Now we can start doing the video processing, which is not going to be the next video, but the one after. Because first I need to explain about how video compression works, or at least bit rates do. Yeah, it's gonna be a whole thing. See you then.